So the first one is 80% of the revenue is generated by 20% of the partners. The second one, 80% of the partners are inactive in the average channel program. And the third one is a good one to remember for the end of the presentation, is that 80% of your outcomes results from 20% of your actions. And I think that's the thing we need to continuously think about as partnerships people, is how can we do more over 20% of actions that actually drive the 80% of the outcomes that we want. And it's also good to see, why is this 80-20 rule? What's the origin of it? And we see that from a vendor perspective, we lack resources to manage the mid-sized to long-tail partners, because we've been so involved with we are already short on resources. So we need to spend them on the part where we are actually generating the most revenue and building the most value for our end user. And the second one is that the partners are occupied in their day-to-day business. So it's hard for it's actually very hard to get the attention of the partners. And in that, we see that it's hard to keep the partners engaged all the time. And to take a bit of a deeper look into why it's so hard to keep the partners engaged, I think it's a good thing to see where that's coming from. And what you really see is that partnerships are booming, of course. That's why we're all here tonight. We're seeing it everywhere on LinkedIn, on all the podcasts, and it's something that I love so much. But at the same time, this also means another thing, because partnerships are so booming, so more and more tech and SaaS vendors are entering the market every day. Like Jamie Basin, 175,000 will grow to 1 million eventually. And this means that there are also more and more vendors entering the market who eventually are going to compete together for the same partnerships. So we want to work with those partners. So we see actually that the market is getting more and more crowded. And if we look at how to scale partnership, then I think it's also interesting to have a look at how do we scale our partner program and how do we scale the partnerships? Because if we look at this, then it becomes a lot more clear why it is so hard to engage all the partners you have. Because to scale partnerships, you need to recruit, integrate, and activate the new partners. You need to train and enable them. And you need to engage your partners in the sales and marketing activities to drive revenue together. But the hard thing is that all vendors and all partner programs have to do this to scale the partnerships. So this is immediately where you see that lack of resources throughout the entire partner landscape coming from. Because we all want to scale our partnerships. All our partners are limited on time and resources. And we all require them to do some activities so we can grow together. So the thing that's really important is to see, like, what kind of challenges does this bring? And I think indeed, if we look at the average partner, they have dozens of vendors, whether it's a channel partner, whether it's an ISV. So there's more competition, and it's harder and harder to stay top of mind with your partners. And as a result of this, we see that a lot of us within partnerships are creating great enablement materials and content, whether it's to train them, to co-market with them, whether it's co-selling activities. But the partners' time and resources are still so limited. So we see that they are not being utilized in the way we want. So they are going to waste eventually. And we really see that the partners, they really love an easy sell. And that's not that we mean that they love that it's an easy product as well, or an easy integration, but they love it when their partners make it easy for them to actually sell to the end user. And we see that vendors who do this in the best way are the ones that win the partner's attention. And this leads to a couple of things. So the first one I already told in the 80-20 rule, of course, that up to 80% of partners is inactive and not generating revenue. And less than 10% of partners in channel programs are engaging with marketing activities. And I think one of the hardest things is that partnerships is still such a black box on many cases. So we're getting more and more data, of course, through automation already, but there's still so much lacking. So there's this challenge that we need to solve, because what we see in a lot of channel programs and partner programs is that we are recruiting partners, followed by partners who are not engaging and you don't sell together. And then the attention is dropping off and partners start to churn out. And that's the cycle we need to break. And what we really believe in, what I really believe in, is that vendors that make partner engagement scalable and smooth by removing the friction in the partnership, so making it easier and easier, are the ones that will win partner mindshare and revenue growth in a more and more congested market. And I think we're all here, of course, for some tacticals as well. So how do you actually make partner engagement scalable? And maybe more importantly, when we look at it from the 80-20 perspective, 80-20, breaking the 80-20 rule perspective, how do we help more and more partners? And I think to look into that, it's first important, like, how can we break this cycle that I just showed you, where we recruit the partners, it's hard to grab the attention, they don't engage, and then they churn out. And one of the things that's super important when you automate things is that you become extremely relevant for your partners. And the way to do this is to connect and segment your partners. So to give you an example of this, what you want to know from your partners is, what type of verticals are you focused on? What type of solutions or product categories do you sell from us as a vendor? In what language do you communicate with your end users? In what regions are you active? And with information like this, you can actually provide enablement content or marketing materials, etc. And you only provide the content, and that brings us to point 2, which is based on their preferences. So because you know the preferences of your partners up front, you can provide them exactly the content that can help them and that brings relevance. And I think that's what we see happening a lot of times, is that we put all our content in a single place where the partner can come and get it. But it's really hard for them because it's so many assets to find what they actually need and what's relevant for their end user. And by segmenting your partners in this way and really providing them with this preference-based partner enablement materials, the last part, what you want is gathering all the data automatically when you're helping your partners. And that's really where the automation tools come in, indeed, like a Kiflo or also like a Channext. So you can make data-informed partner decisions and really go toward data-informed partner management. And what I always really love when I start thinking about how we can do things differently in partnerships is look at other industries and then reverse engineer how they became successful. And the thing that I've been thinking about a lot is, what can we learn from customer success in partnerships, and why is partner success going to become one of the most important roles in partnerships? And I think if you take a look at that, it's very interesting at what customer success did. Like they had to find product usage metrics and the way that customers are interacting with you to actually predict which customers would have the highest retention, the highest customer lifetime value, and would stay with you for the longest time. And I think in partnerships, it's exactly the same. What you want is to track partner engagement in the right way, and I'll get into the type of metrics a bit later. But what you want is to really track that partner engagement on the broadest scale, because you want to really break the only way to break the 80-20 rule is by actually having a complete helicopter overview of all your partners and how they are engaging. And that's what we see in customer success as well, of course, where they got more and more customers. They couldn't have the direct relationships all the time anymore with every customer. So they had to find a way where they actually see how customers are interacting with them. And then as soon as customers either are interacting in a very good way, so there might be an expansion opportunity, or they might turn into churning, that's when you pop in and make sure you also help the partners that you might work with a little less. So that's really how you can focus on the 80% of your partner program. And then the second thing that's really intriguing is the customer health score. I think if there's one thing that they done really well in customer success is bringing it back to a customer health score that can actually predict the retention, the customer lifetime value, etc. And if we turn a customer health score into a partner engagement score, where you really measure the most important interactions between you and your partners, but not just the interactions, but also the outcomes that you desire when working with a partner, then you can start mapping that to future partner success as well. And that can really help you to find on which partners you should focus your time at that moment in the best way. And the third thing that's became really big in customer success is customer playbook automation. So based on all the data that you are tracking and based on the partner engagement scores, it triggers the right partner playbook automations. So you actually reach out to the right partners at the right time with the right content. And I think that's super crucial if you really want to start scaling your program, but also facilitate the 80% of your channel. You need to make it super practical. You need to make it very extensive in that part as well. And that's where automation plays a very important role. And what I think the thing that's very important is you need to look both at input metrics and at impact metrics. So there are many input metrics that you can measure to measure the first part of engagement of your partner. So how often they are logging in, how many content they are downloading, the created collateral together, whether they are spending their MDF or their co-marketing budgets, whether they're filling out your partner questionnaires or service, etc. But you also really want to look at the impact metrics, which is, for example, the partner interactions together, the campaign participation. So not just how many content did they download, but really how much campaigns did they participate in and actually share with their end user. And the same is with the collateral, not just know whether they created it, but how many end users read those collateral. Or not just how much co-marketing budget was spent, but what are the real-time campaign results and how are we continuously improving this? And with the partner questionnaires to real partner NPS, where we know how are the partners thinking about us, what are we doing well, and what can we improve? And that's the continuous feedback loop you want to get into with your partners so you can continuously improve your channel and your partner program. So where does automation end? Because there's a lot to automate, of course, but you should never automate everything. And that's what I agree with so much with Will. Like, automation is good, but it only goes so far. And what you can automate is enabling your partners at scale. It's tracking the partner engagement scores, spotting the churn risk and expansion opportunities, and triggering playbooks like that. But that's where the human interaction starts, where you reach out to your partner, where you build the partnership relationship together, and most importantly, you grow together, of course. And then the final slide of my presentation, building the relationship through human interaction, typically is the 20% of activities that generate 80% of your outcomes, and robots will never replace this. Robots will only make it easier for you so you can focus more on the human interaction to build a relationship and build out your partner program.